All right, we're 2 minutes past the hour, and let's go ahead and get started because there's a lot to cover. There's a lot going on with these hot flashes. And I want to, we do have some questions that came in on the Facebook group. So I want to make sure that I get to those. And where do I have those? What did I do with those? Oh, shit. Oh, here they are. Okay, good. Got the questions. And all right, terrific. So I will get everybody muted. And if you've got something, question, comment, or otherwise, put it into the chat box and we'll get rolling. Tonight, woohoo, big topic tonight, the hot flashes, right? Hot flashes are probably the most synonymous symptom with menopause of them all, to be sure, hands down. And I don't know if anybody out there on the screen or who's going to pop in and watch this later, I don't know if you've experienced hot flashes yet, but I have. And for me, they always started deep internally, and it's probably a little different for everybody, or at least the women that I've talked to. It varies, but for me, they always started deep internally, like emanating from my spine, and then it would radiate outwards, and it wouldn't always get like out my limbs or to my hands. Sometimes it was well, not sometimes, most often it's just my trunk, and I might have like once I might have one hot flash now. I think I've had a hot flash in the last 4 months or so, but they've dissipated immensely. Like I think I'm done with them, but I did have one a few months ago. But they're so far in between. I'm like they're not really that big of a deal anymore, but when they were rolling, they almost always happen. I'd say 90% of them for me came at night. And definitely it was a sheet soaker. So I early on began bringing it makes a difference what you wear to bed, if anything. Definitely no synthetics, but I began early on bringing hand towels to bed with me, so that I could like mop myself up, because the heat for me always just kind of stayed right in my trunk, really condensed in my trunk. So just like my whole torso was just but anyway, that's been my experience, and approximately 80% of women in the US will experience hot flashes. And I'm all for reframing our relationship with these extraordinary surges of heat. We live in a civilized society, right? I think I put this on the Facebook page this morning. We live in a civilized society, a civilized country, if you will, where we're expected to go through this rather significant change in our life as though it were nothing. And for many women, our careers and kind of our survival within our professions, in large part, depends on how we look. And I think it seems to me, and rightfully so, that we're very much moving away from that cultural belief that we have to look a certain way in order to have a certain career. But consider this: menopause and perimenopause, to be more specific, usually occurs between the ages of 45 to 55, and that really is the age bracket when career women, professional women, are most likely to move into top leadership roles, top leadership positions. So perimenopause generally lasts anywhere from 5 to 7 is typical, but often it can last 10 to even 14 years. And so if you think about it, what that tells us is there are millions of women here in the US that are perimenopausal, that are coming into these positions of management, positions of leadership. And essentially power roles, if you will, while experiencing sometimes mild, but often incredibly severe symptoms. So at the same time, though, we're urged by external voices, by the media, and by internal voices, many of us, to do whatever we can to appear young, to appear cool and in control, and above all, to never let anybody see us sweat, right? You remember that commercial? Never let them see you sweat. I think it was for deodorant, like Secret or some kind of a deodorant. So in the workplace, hot flashes are, speaking of hot flash, I had to turn the heater off. In the workplace, hot flashes are, in my opinion, too often the punchline to a joke. And we can talk about breast cancer, we can talk about obesity, we can talk about pregnancy. These states are becoming more and more there's more approval to talk about them, but yet menopause has, until the last few years, remained completely taboo, and that's changing. And for which we are all very grateful. We can normalize this in the workplace. We can talk about it. We can acknowledge it. We can take the power away from those that make it a joke, and we can actually take charge of it. So rather than pretending that it's not happening or falling prey to the caricature of the woman throwing ice cubes down her shirt, or racing to the window for gulps of fresh air, we can simply calmly, coolly, and collectedly try something like standing up and saying, you know what, I'm going to excuse myself for a few minutes. I'm having a hot flash and I'm going to take a break. And just, leave it at that. Like, no permission necessary. Just, this is my physiology. This is what's happening. I own it. I'm in control of it. And then turn and walk out the door. And I mean, to me, that seems more powerful, coming from that seems more powerful than playing into the caricature of the hysterical and menopausal hot flash woman. The stats show that at least the study shows that women will have experience at least one hot flash by the time we're 60. Now, there is do I have this book up here? There is a botanist, and she's very well renowned in the world of herbalism and what's called the wise woman way of medicine. And her name is Susan Weed. That's truly her name. Kind of fun for a botanist. But anyway, so she's got this book called The Menopausal Years, and not long ago she revised it, and it's called The New Menopausal Years. And I mean, it's if you're interested in the herbal perspectives and the very natural earthy perspectives, it's a great book to have on hand. But she compares hot flashes or power surges to three major experiences in our lives: anger, orgasm, and enlightenment. So she also refers to these hot flashes or power surges as waves of energy. Think Kundalini energy, prana, chi, and life force. Now, what we know from a conventional model, the Western perspective, is that there are triggers for many women. Will all of these be a trigger for you? Maybe, maybe not. Everybody's physiology is going to be just different enough. But what has been shown is that spicy and acidic foods have been known to trigger hot flashes. Alcohol, for sure. Alcohol is just like pouring kerosene onto a fire. So if you're already struggling with hot flashes, or you run hot by nature, alcohol is something that you might consider reducing or maybe even eliminating, at least while you're going through this time in this phase in your life. White sugar, processed sugar, for sure, can be a trigger. Caffeine can be a trigger. Intense exercise even, and anger has been shown to be a trigger. And some people believe that unexpressed anger can be a trigger for hot flashes. From the Western perspective, what's happening physiologically, and there's plenty of there's plenty of excellent articles online and in books that actually explain the physiology of what's going on, as much as we know what's going on from an endocrine perspective with hormones. But I mean, to encapsulate it, and I don't mean to bastardize it, but to encapsulate it and try to, like, make it make sense like on my level, on like a really elementary level, is the hypothalamus. Think of your hypothalamus as like your thermostat, and the hypothalamus is home to a ton of estrogen receptors. Now, when our estrogen levels begin to drop, and the hormones start to drastically fluctuate during perimenopause. Remember, this is our second puberty, right? So our hormones they're doing kind of the wild thing all over our bodies. So that the hypothalamus being home to so many estrogen receptors, as the estrogen begins to dip and jive and do whatever, and do its roller coaster thing, the hypothalamus, the estrogen receptors also begin to go a little berserk. And so it's almost like our thermostat gets broken or gets hijacked for a little bit. It won't be that way forever, right? Typically, for most, for most women, once you pass perimenopause and you hit menopause, for most women, those hot flashes are going to dissipate. There are some women that continue to have them postmenopausally, but typically once we hit menopause, the things start to level out a little bit more. So think of your hypothalamus as your body's thermostat. It goes a little haywire when those estrogen receptors aren't receiving the signals that they need. And your hormones are the messengers. They're the ones that are passing the signals along. We also know that fluctuating hormone levels are caused by stress, for sure, whether that's external stress or internal stress. We know that hormone levels fluctuate and get out of whack, caused by lifestyle. We know that environmental chemicals disrupt our endocrine system, and therefore our hormone balance gets disrupted. These environmental chemicals are both natural as well as man-made. What they do is they mimic or they interfere with our endocrine system, therefore our hormones. Anytime you hear endocrine system, I mean, you can just think hormones for our purposes in this program. And these chemicals have been linked, we're going to dive into this here in just a minute. These chemicals have been linked to developmental, reproductive, brain, and neurological and immune conditions. So last week, we began cleaning out our diet, or clearing up our diet, if you will, by removing the big six, right? Those processed meats and oils, processed white sugar, processed white flour, alcohol was in there, coffee / caffeine was in there, and dairy was in there. So those 6 ingredients have been shown to be triggers for inflammation, and also have been shown to be disruptive to our endocrine system. So we began removing the big 6 last week, and this week we're going to do a kitchen makeover by removing the chemicals and the xenoestrogens that are found lurking in our cabinets and our cupboards. Now, what, you ask, is a xenoestrogen? Yeah, crazy word, begins with an X, not a Z. A xenoestrogen is any natural or synthetic compound introduced into the body which mimics the effects of estrogen or promotes its production. In your Monday email, which you get an email every Monday morning at 6 a.m., and in this week's email, there is an article that I link to in the email that tells you all about xenoestrogens in a very applicable and approachable way that we can understand what they are, what they do, and what we can do about them. And we're gonna go into that as well. So, for example, plastics contain hormone disrupting chemicals such as BPA, which mimic estrogen in our body and place an enormous burden on our livers. So, for let's see, okay, so BPA, it's found in can liners, water bottles, plastic food storage containers, and those thermal receipts, those the paper that is kind of slick feeling. Those thermal receipts are just full of BPA. Just wash your hands. Every gas station gives you a thermal receipt now if you're getting a paper receipt. And post office, they're almost all thermal receipts. We're not going to be able to get away from it unless you do a digital receipt, which is great. But if you do paper receipts and hang on to them like I do, I'm old school like that, just, wash your hands. Don't freak out, but wash your hands. So what we want to watch out for is what's called recycling label number 7 or polycarbonate. Those are 2 words that you can kind of keep an eye out for. We get BPA also through our diet. And there's some research now lately that's showing it's widespread throughout the population of the US. One study conducted by the CDC found detectable levels of BPA in 93% of the subjects that it tested. There's a more recent study from the Harvard School of Public Health. I didn't, oops, let's go back. I didn't link to that, but I can pull it up and post. It might be in the email. Anyway, I'll pull it up and post it in the Facebook page. But there's a more recent study from the Harvard School of Public Health where researchers found that participants who drank for 1 week from a polycarbonate bottle, those are the popular hard plastic drinking bottles, and also their baby bottles are those polycarbonate bottles. People who drank from those bottles for 1 week showed a 2/3 increase in their urine of BPA. So exposure to BPA has been found to interfere with our reproductive development. And that's, I should say, let me back up. Those studies have been done on rats, on animals in labs. And it's also been linked with cardiovascular disease and diabetes in humans. It's been studied in that way in humans. So what we want to do is we want to look for BPA free for starters. Cut back on cans when and where you can, right? I mean, we're doing what we can with what we've got. So when you can, cut back on cans. Avoid putting polycarbonate plastics, if you've got them, avoid putting those in the microwave or in the dishwasher because there is some concern that the heat may break them down over time and allow that BPA, which stands for bisphenol A, which allows that to then leach into your food. And then an easy remedy is you can start swapping out your plastics for glass containers, porcelain containers, stainless steel containers for your food or for your water. This link here takes you to the mayoclinic.org, which has some excellent Q&A and excellent solutions for the BPA problem. But there's more. So next up is dioxin. Dioxin is considered one of the air quotes, dirty dozen. So if you'll go to the EPA's website, the Environmental Protection Agency. Oh, hey, Tammy, you made it. I see you now. Okay, sorry, Tammy's camera's on. So if you go to the EPA's website, the Environmental Protection Agency, you can do put up in their search bar the dirty dozen, and that will link you to what the EPA considers to be the top dozen chemicals that are really quite hazardous to our health. And dioxin is right up there at the top of the list. Dioxin is used to soften plastic. It makes it more pliable, like think PVC pipe, right? It needs to be pliable in order to make a pipe out of it. Also, like your shower curtain, plastic shower curtain, dioxin is used to make the shower curtain soft. and malleable. Dioxin is also used in lotions. It helps lotion to penetrate the skin. It also helps lotion to hold fragrance longer. Dioxin is the unwanted byproduct of multiple manufacturing processes. They're released through certain combustion processes. So, for example, PVC, the PVC pipe or in your shower curtain releases dioxin not only when it's produced, but also when it's burned. So when it's taken to the landfill, or if something catches fire, then dioxin is released then as well. What we know about dioxin right now is that it's highly toxic and it affects a number of organs and systems in our body. We know that it's absorbed into our fat tissue and it's stored there in our fat for as little as 7 years and as long as 11 years. We know that the short-term exposure to dioxin has resulted in skin lesions, patchy darkening of skin, altered liver function, thyroid function, and fertility function. And we know from studies and research that long-term exposure to dioxin has resulted in impaired immune and endocrine systems, as well as impaired reproductive functions. More than 90% of human exposure to dioxin is through our food supply, mainly through meat and dairy, fish, and shellfish. So protecting our food supply is absolutely critical. And I think it's just as critical. In addition to protecting our food supply and doing what we can around that, I think knowing your farmer, knowing your rancher, if you're eating meat or dairy, knowing who's producing it. The factory farming situation in the States is out of control, and I don't have the time or the emotional bandwidth to go into it tonight. But suffice it to say, it's out of control, and the amount of suffering that is happening out there, animal suffering, planetary suffering, human suffering because of the results of the hormones and the junk and the antibiotics that we're consuming through the beef and the dairy, the poultry. It's out of control. So know your rancher, know your rancher, know your rancher, know where your food's coming from. So now we're going to talk about phthalates. So phthalates are chemicals that are also found in plastic. I hope you're sensing a theme now that plastic is not to be toyed with. Phthalates are chemicals that are found in plastics, found in children's toys, and more and more and more these days found in food, particularly in poultry, cooking oils, dairy products, and get this isn't food, but in fragrance, that ubiquitous fragrance that we see on labels, on ingredients. So dairy has the highest concentration and the highest source of dietary exposure with phthalates. So if you consider that phthalates are found in plastic, and you think about conventional dairy farming practices, the plastic tubing that the milk goes through, used in milking production. Phthalates have been linked to low sperm counts and low sperm mobility and motility. Phthalates have been linked to hormonal changes, birth defects in the male reproductive system, related to obesity, diabetes, and also thyroid irregularities. And so under current law, phthalates can be labeled simply as fragrance, even though they might make up 20% or more of the product. So lotion, perfume, skincare, cosmetics, and we're going to talk about bathroom stuff next week. But phthalates are kind of they're ubiquitous also, much like dioxin. They're just kind of in there. So this, if you want to take a screenshot of the slide, you can. There's an article here from The Guardian that I think is well worth investigating and looking into. Okay, so that leads us, and we just covered three, right? We covered BPA, phthalates, and dioxin. There is a whole world of chemicals out there that are lurking in our cabinets and in our equipment, our cooking equipment, our storing equipment, how we purchase food, buy food. The spinach that comes in the plastic clamshell, or the mixed greens that come in the plastic clamshell. I mean, if you can ditch that, great. What we've started doing quite some time ago, and I can't remember where Sam got these. He might have gotten them online, or he might have found them at Walmart for all I know. But they're mesh. They're a mesh produce bag, and they have a little drawstring up at the top, and we have like a half a dozen of those, and we keep those in the car with our other bags. And when we go and get produce, if we can get the produce just like straight produce in bulk rather than buying it boxed, to me that's a win, because then I can just put it in my little baggie, my little mesh bag, and then I'll throw those bags in the refrigerator with the produce in it, and then when I'm done with it, I'll kind of wash it out, hang it to dry. So I mean, there's options out there that can help us, and they're small steps, right? But they're all small steps towards the big greater good. And it just can be one step at a time. It can seem overwhelming to think, oh my gosh, I've got to get rid of all this stuff in my kitchen. I mean, it takes a while, right? I mean, I try to buy in bulk, but I can't always get things in bulk. So you do the best you can with what you've got. And when I get things in bulk, I like to bring them home and put them into a mason jar. I mean, in like jars that I get, say, nut butters in, or olives in, or artichoke hearts in, or something like that. I save the jar, and that becomes now a jar for rice, or another grain, or a legume, or nuts, or something like that. So I'm just, anytime that there's an option to shift over to the healthier choice, the safer choice, the cleaner choice. And I hesitate to use the word clean because then that gets weird. But how about just the healthier choice, the safer choice? Then we try to make those things happen to the best of our ability with what we have, the resources that we have. So here's what you can do. You can focus on your pots and pans, and as you start dinging up your old pans, if they fall into a not so great category, ask for a new pan for your birthday or for Christmas. Avoid nonstick cookware. We've already talked about how to use drinking, what containers to use for drinking water. Of course, go organic whenever possible. And even better, go to your farmer's market whenever possible. And a lot of farmers at the market may not be certified organic because perhaps they don't have the resources to go through, the financial resources to go through the hoops of becoming certified organic. But if you know your farmer, and oftentimes they would be happy for you to come out and visit their farm so you can actually see their practices. If you've got kids in your life, what a great field trip. And if you're single, what a great date to have with a partner. Or if you're not single, take your partner and go visit a farm or a ranch. Meats, go organic. Again, reducing meat consumption and dairy consumption is hands down one of the best things we can do for our planet. So if you eat meat on the daily, consider a meatless Monday, or just maybe having meat once a week if you choose to have it at all. And then there is some evidence that having English ivy, even Gerbera daisies in the house, can help clean up the atmosphere in the house. So I thought that was kind of nice. Now let's jump into the Ayurvedic perspective. When it comes to Ayurveda, and this perimenopausal phase, if you'll remember, the years of going through perimenopause typically fall between 45 and 55 years old. Now, just as girls are hitting puberty earlier and earlier, it's called precocious puberty, just as young girls are entering puberty earlier and earlier these days, so are women entering puberty, entering their second puberty, entering perimenopause earlier and earlier. I mean, even as early as like 38 years old, right? I mean, at 38, 40 years old, you're not really thinking about hot flashes or missing libido, or, I mean, you're not thinking about any of this stuff, but it's beginning to happen. We're starting to see it more and more and more. So from the Ayurvedic perspective, if you've got some familiarity with the doshas of Vata, Pitta, and Kapha, Vata is air and space, a combination of those elements, and Pitta is like mostly fire, and Kapha is mostly, it's got some earth and water, so it's a little heavier, a little more stable, a little sturdier. But about the doshas, these three doshas, they govern physiological processes in the body, right? Kapha governs all things lubrication and cohesion. It's the sticky glue that holds us together and keeps us moisturized, right, from the inside out. Pitta's physiological function is digestion, metabolism, thermogenesis, and manifestation, or transformation, I should say. And then Vata's physiological work, if you will, is all things nervous system, all things movement oriented. All of our electrical impulses are governed, we say in Ayurvedic medicine, by Vata and by the air and space elements. But so setting aside what the doshas govern from a physiological perspective, the doshas also govern times of day. I'm not going to go into that, but I just want to plant the seed. If you want to look it up, it's really fascinating. It aligns pretty closely with what traditional Chinese medicine believes as well about the Chinese medicine clock. But tonight, what I want to express is that these three doshas also govern times of year. So Pitta being fire, that's summer. Vata being air and space, that aligns with fall and early winter. And Kapha being heavy, wet, damp, cool, sticky, it's spring. It's late winter and spring. So stick a post-it note in that and look that up down the road when you've got some free time to fall into a rabbit hole online. Now, tonight, these three doshas also govern times of life. This is where I want you to like hear this. If nothing else, hear this. Kapha, time of life, is from birth to just after puberty. So early, late teens, let's say late teens. Kapha being responsible for building growth and cohesion. Kapha is responsible for our moisture and our mucus production. Dr. John Douillard, an Ayurvedic practitioner, is fond of saying kids are mucus producing machines. Are they not? They totally are. Kapha is childhood, right? Pitta is the time of life from our 20s up to like late 40s. Pitta is when we're on fire. Pitta is when we're building careers, we're building incomes, we're building nest eggs, we're building households, we're building businesses and empires. We're on fire, right? We're building, that's what we're doing. We should be hot. We're making things happen. We're in the midst of transformation and manifestation. Now, Vata time of life is mid-50s until the end. Vata is the fall or the autumn of our life. Now, we don't have hard set rules on ages, like, okay, when you're 14 you're done with Kapha. No, I mean, ebb and flow, and everybody's a little different, right? But suffice it to say, these are the three primary stages of life from the Ayurvedic perspective. So now, with that background, if you think about going through perimenopause, you might think, as I did for many, many years, that, oh, well, it's so freaking hot with all these damn hot flashes. It must be a Pitta issue. It must be a Pitta condition. Well, I was told wrong. It's not a Pitta. Well, actually, I was never told that. I thought it made sense that because I was hot flashing all the time, it must be a pitta condition. But that's not true. My teachers corrected me. No, Lisa, actually, it's a vata condition. What? Are you kidding me? Yeah, it's a vata condition. And if you think about it, vata is mobile, right? Vata is wind. Vata is like pushing everything around. Perimenopause is an example of vata, the winds of vata, pushing pitta, pushing pitta, fanning the fire, fanning the flames of pitta. So it makes it would make sense that we would want to treat pitta, but in reality, we really need to be harnessing vata. Yeah, we're going to treat pitta on the side for sure. We're going to bring in some herbs. We're going to bring in some appropriate foods, that kind of thing. We're going to monitor lifestyle. So the pitta woman who's on fire doesn't get overheated. But overall, the big umbrella over perimenopause is vata. What is perimenopause if it's not a change? What is perimenopause if it's not a transition? What is perimenopause if it's not the great fluctuation? And that's all movement. That is all related to the winds of vata going back and forth. 1 minute I'm hot, the next minute I'm cold. So we want to treat vata during the pitta time of life, right? Because I hear you out there. You're like, yeah, okay, you're saying this is a vata condition, but I'm in my 40s. Aren't I still in my pitta time of life? Yes, absolutely you are. But we want to start treating vata now because we've got to harness all of this mobility and all of this erratic fluctuation that's going on hormonally. And we've got to set ourselves up for the next stage of our life. And how do we harness vata and all of her motion? We do it through routine. Routine, routine, routine. And we do it through reducing stress. If we don't have a lot of stress, and this will harken back to last week, and I talked a bit about the yin and the yang hormones, right? The yin are the nourishing hormones, the yang are those fiery, adrenaline, cortisol, all that we need those hormones too, right? But if we don't have a lot of stress, we have plenty of yin, the nourishing hormones, after menopause. Now, yeah, our yin hormones, estrogen, progesterone, they do naturally begin to decline by age 50, they begin to decline around age 35. And yes, they do drop significantly once we hit the menopause. But this means that if your yang or your stress activity doesn't also begin to decrease, or if we don't learn how to better tolerate it and manage it, then we can use up the low levels of yin that we do have and throw ourselves out of whack. Okay, does that make sense? So what we know is that post-menopause, we're still going to produce 40 to 60% of our premenopausal hormones. What we also know is that, yeah, estrogen falls, but usually about 40% at menopause. We also know that we have the ability to synthesize these sex hormones, estrogen, progesterone, sufficient for our natural post-menopausal needs, right? So you're postmenopausal, you're not birthing babies anymore. So your needs, your hormonal needs are going to change post-menopause. So we know that we have the ability to synthesize the sex hormones that are sufficient for our postmenopausal needs through our adrenal glands and our body tissues, okay? Our adrenal glands. So while estrogen, this dip in estrogen may be due to a long-term excess of the yang hormones, the stress hormones, a long-term excess of cortisol, a long-term excess of adrenaline. And what those two hormones, what those do, the adrenaline and the cortisol, is they drain our yin hormones. Are you starting to see kind of the seesaw that's happening between the yin and the yang? So there's a time and a place for HRT, right? And I think these days it's being HRT, hormone replacement therapy. These days it's being referred to as MRT, Is that right? Anyway, we kind of all know it as HRT, and it might be appropriate. HRT, there's a time and a place, right? And it might be appropriate for you, particularly if you've exhausted all the alternatives and your symptoms are still just, you know, a, they're just an abomination, or they're just completely, absolutely debilitating. Then absolutely look into it. I'm definitely not here to demonize any choice for bioidentical or synthetic. However, consider this: adding more estrogen through HRT without calming or harnessing or reducing the stress in our lives, external or internal, is like pouring water into a bucket with a hole in it. So we have to address stress. We have to. This is going to be an underlying theme for the next 3 weeks as well. By the time we reach menopause, many of us have already drained our reserves of yin in service to the yang. Okay, we've drained our nourishing sex hormones in service to the fiery get up and go hormones. Now that our ovaries are producing a smaller quantity, if you still have your ovaries, now that the ovaries are producing a smaller quantity, our adrenal glands are supposed to kick into production and take over. But what if our adrenal glands are burnt out from the last 20 or 30 years of our, we've been in this pitta time of life where we're building a career and we're, moving up in our profession, and we're burning the midnight oil, and we're getting up at 5 a.m. to run, and then we drink coffee for breakfast, and then we skip lunch altogether, or we eat through meetings, and then we work late into the night answering emails and researching until 10, 11, sometimes 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, and we're our sleep is disrupted, and et cetera, et cetera. You know the person I'm talking about. So if that's the case, then our adrenal glands are going to be tapped out, they're going to be tired out, and they're going to be unable to deliver us the postmenopausal requirements that we need. So we have to deal with vata. We do have to deal with pitta, but it's mostly vata. And we have to reduce stress. We know for a fact that stress impacts our digestion. 1 hour of stress jacks up our microbiome, just 1 hour of stress. We know that stress impacts our digestion, our sleep, our nervous system, and our endocrine function. It's essential that stress be addressed as early as possible. So for those of you ladies on the screen who aren't yet having hot flashes, or you're not quite yet into perimenopause, handle your stress now. And for those of you who have young women in your lives, whether that's daughters, granddaughters, nieces, friends, coworkers, be the ambassador and the example of how a powerful woman can harness her own energy and better manage stress, so that we can be an example to the younger women. Because we've got to do that. So in addition to routine and harnessing our stress and reducing our stress, we have to love our liver. We've got to clean it. We've got to stabilize it. Our liver is a natural organ of detoxification. Detoxification is what it does. We shouldn't have to detox our livers on a regular basis, right? It should be doing that for us. But do I believe that some of our livers are pretty overloaded and overwhelmed because of just the current culture that we live in and the current environment that we live in? Yeah, I do believe that. I think our livers need a boost for sure. So our livers are most awesome. They do over 500 tasks for us, in addition to making cholesterol and red blood cells. They balance and detoxifying our body. Our livers also balance and regulate and maintain our hormones. So if we have excess estrogens, xenoestrogens that are circulating around, or excess estrogens from the food that we've been eating, our livers push that stuff out. But poor diet and lifestyle can overwork our liver causing that excess estrogen to back up, especially if we're not having a daily bowel movement. That excess estrogen can get backed up and it gets recirculated into our body, and that's never a good thing. So the Love Your Liver lifestyle is hydration. Got to be drinking water. You could take your body weight, divide it in half, and that's about how much water you should be drinking in ounces a day. That's if you're moderately active. Now, if you're super duper active, you're training for a 5K or a marathon or triathlon or something like that, get you some more water on board. And this is straight up water. Also, food and the timing of food. So with regards to what to eat to love your liver loves the foods from the Brassicaceae family: broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, kale. Your liver loves those foods because they help with the detoxification process. They help stimulate that detoxification. Your liver loves apples. The more sour, the better. Your liver loves beets. Those are some other excellent foods for your liver. Now, the timing of foods. It's quite important to stop eating after 6 o'clock at night. It's really important to do that. And if your schedule doesn't allow for that, then just plant the seed. And over time, see about, okay, what could I possibly shift so that I could start eating a little bit earlier? We have a saying in Ayurveda that says, eat breakfast like a prince, lunch like a king, and dinner like a peasant. Dinner should be extremely light, particularly if you struggle with GERD, reflux, hyperacidity, indigestion, sour belly, etc. If you have difficulty getting to sleep or staying asleep at night, I urge you to try eating earlier and giving yourself a minimum of a 4-hour window between your evening meal and when you go to bed. So that brings us to sleep and the timing of sleep. Getting to bed by 10, or ideally getting to sleep by 10, is, the gold standard. And I look at the liver as the nighttime janitor of our bodies. So, and I just looked at the clock. Okay, I got to speed this up. So the liver is the nighttime janitor of our bodies. Stick a pin in that. I will post that story to Facebook so that you can read about it there, and it'll make better sense then why it is so imperative that we eat earlier and give our livers the time, the space, and the energy it needs to do its job in the middle of the night, rather than all of the energy going to our digestive system trying to process the Taco Bell fourth meal or whatever it was we just ate at 9 o'clock. All right, this brings us to the aloe tonic. Now, it's a 1/4 cup of aloe vera juice, a 1/2 teaspoon of turmeric. Stir it up, shake it up as best you can. The turmeric's not going to dissolve really well, so just shake it up the best you can and toss it back. This brings me to one of the questions that came up in the Facebook page. I apologize. When I reprinted the manual for this time around, I made some edits to it because I thought I was being a smarty pants to make some edits, and apparently I gaffed. I made a big gaff. In your manual, for week 2, it gives you 3 times to drink the aloe tonic. Disregard that. Disregard it with my apologies. Just drink the aloe tonic twice, in the morning and again in the evening. If you can drink it away from food by 30 minutes, great. If not, it's just important to get it on board. So find that rhythm in your schedule and drop back your aloe tonic twice daily. Take it with 1 liver tablet. Okay, let's go into a few botanical boosts, and I'm gonna fly through this. So if you want to take screenshots, you're welcome to do so. Now, botanical boost number 1, black cohosh. In botanical medicine, herbal medicine, we use the root of black cohosh. It's been used for centuries. It's to relieve the symptoms of menopause, particularly hot flashes, and enhance bone formation. It has also been reported to improve sleep. Now, You can use an extract. So you would take a dropper full 1 to 3 times a day. Most studies, though, on black cohosh have been done on a product called Remifemin. Remifemin, you can buy it at CVS. You can buy it at Walmart. It's completely over the counter. And when you look at the box, you look at the ingredients, the only ingredient in there is black cohosh. So Remifemin is the leading natural therapy that is most common, over the counter, I should say, natural therapy that's most commonly used for menopausal symptoms. So if you do the over the counter, it's easier to find Remifemin than it is to find black cohosh extract, I think, unless you live near a health food store that has extracts. Like I think Natural Grocers out here in Oklahoma has these. Can't be positive about black cohosh, but Remifemin is easy and it's accessible and it's cost effective. You just follow the instructions on the label. Remifemin also has what's called Remifemin PM, which has additional herbal ingredients that aid sleep and enhance sleep duration and quality of sleep. So if hot flashes are waking you up in the night, that might be a product for you to try. You try it, it's not expensive, and you can give it a shot and see if it works for you. I've had many clients have great experience with Remifemin. I've had one client say, didn't work for me. Okay, all right. So we try the next thing. Next up, after Remifemin, is motherwort. Now, motherwort is used around the world, especially in Europe, for night sweats in particular. Also, as a side benefit, motherwort is known to relieve stress and anxiety. Also, to stop heart palpitations, which is another not uncommon symptom of perimenopause, interestingly. Motherwort is known to strengthen the mind and steady the heart. And it can be taken as an extract. You take it before bed, and you could take it if you wake up consecutively through the night, you can take it up to 3 times. Just keep it by your bedside. When you wake up, too hot, can't sleep, shake it up, take another dropper full. You can take these straight. Now, they are alcohol based, so buyer beware. If you're trying to avoid alcohol, or maybe you're in recovery and you don't want to deal with alcohol, you can find these in a glycerin base as well. You'll have better luck finding those online probably than at a local health food store. So motherwort's been known to be an effective remedy for many, many women. However, it usually takes up to 2 weeks to start experiencing benefits. Now, you'll notice that when it comes to herbal medicines aren't going to act nearly as quickly as a pharmaceutical. They just won't. So know that going into it. If you need immediate relief and your symptoms are out of control, off the charts, it might be worth talking to your doctor or your OB-GYN about what's the best approach with hormone replacement therapy if that's a road you want to go down. Otherwise, I say diet and lifestyle, diet, lifestyle, diet, lifestyle, and then throw some herbs in there. Elderflower is another herb specifically used for resetting the body's thermostat. You can use it several times throughout the day, and you can look for results with elderflower in a few days, 3 to 5 days. There's also red clover, stinging nettle, and garden sage, and you could make an infusion out of any of these or all of these. You could buy these through my favorite site, I don't get a kickback, is called Mountain Rose Herbs. I'm also a fan of Frontiers. I'm also a fan of Star West Botanicals. And you can buy all of these herbs in bulk from those sites, and you could get one or you could get a combination, and you can make an infusion. Infusions are where you take a large amount of the herbs. Like I just use a handful. I'm not real specific about measurements when it comes to infusions. You take a handful of the herb, throw it into a French press, pour your hot water over it and allow it to brew for 6 to 8 hours or overnight. What happens in this method is infusions will extract more nutrients than a tincture and more medicinal qualities than just simply drinking a red clover tea. Infusions will stay good in your refrigerator for 2 to 3 days. So you can make 1 or 2 French presses. You can just have them circulating, rotating through your fridge. Don't drink them ice cold. If you would, you can drink 1 to 2 cups a day, pull it out, pour it into your cup, let it sit, let it get a little closer to room temperature, just like a wine. You would let a wine air out and open up a bit. It softens up, it enhances the flavor profile. Likewise with an herbal infusion. So infusions are also a cost-effective and tasty way to explore natural remedies to the symptoms that are working you over. A couple of other heat quenchers, I call them, and these come from Maya Tiwari, who is an Ayurvedic practitioner, quite well known in the world of Ayurveda. One is simply coconut water and lime. It's very refreshing, and I mean, I have clients that will drink that throughout the entire summer, and it's just a nice way and a tasty way to kind of keep the body a little more regulated. Likewise, pomegranate and aloe juice is another terrific and easy and accessible something you can buy at grocery stores. You already have, you can get aloe juice pretty much anywhere, pomegranate juice pretty much anywhere, and both of those have cooling, astringent, and sweet properties that are all wonderful for keeping our thermostat a bit more regulated. I think it's important, I want to reiterate that herbs, these botanicals that I'm mentioning to you, it's not one size fits all, right? Somebody might respond super well to the Remy Femin and be like, this is fantastic. And other people might be like, man, it didn't really work for me. But, oh, let me go back. Really quick, I want to jump back to this page. Whoops. This when I mentioned garden, when this page I was talking specifically about infusions, but I do want to point out the sage, and underneath sage you'll see Menoforce. So that's actually the name of a brand, and if I'm not mistaken, I believe it's out of Switzerland. It could be New Zealand, but I think it's Switzerland. I don't know. I can't remember. But Menoforce is the name of a brand that has a tablet that is just sage. And they have a few studies. Now, the studies are small, but they do have a few studies researching these sage tablets for use of tamping down hot flashes. And you can screenshot this and take a look at this study that I've included underneath that talks about that gives you the rundown, the method, the outcome, and the results, and that sort of thing. So another item that you can look for, you can buy it on Amazon, right, if you shop there. So let me go back now. So to wrap it up, it's worth reiterating that these herbs and botanicals, one might work great for one person, but not for another person. Everybody's different. We're all going to react and respond differently based on our physiology, based on our history, medical history, our genetics, etc. But herbs, always keep in mind that herbs and botanicals are simply an adjunct. They're just an adjunct to stress reduction, dietary changes, and lifestyle interventions. First things first, ladies, diet and lifestyle, diet and lifestyle, diet and lifestyle. That includes stress reduction. Okay, just those things, those factors, those are dominating causative factors to 80% of our illnesses, for starters, in the US. And the symptoms of perimenopause are right up there. Now, so herbs are just an adjunct to stress reduction, diet, and lifestyle. They absolutely will help most women with symptomatic relief, but they're still not going to address the underlying problem or the root cause of an unbalanced Agni, right? That circles back to last week when we talked about our digestive fire, and you took a look at, is my digestive fire too high, too hot? Is it a raging inferno? Is my digestive fire too low? Is it, too kind of sluggish and damp? Is my digestive fire too variable and erratic? And you can go back to last week's slides and lecture and revisit that and take a look. We've got to balance our Agni, and we've got to reduce stress. So Agni first, reduce or balance Agni, reduce our toxicity, which we're doing with our food sweep, our refrigerator sweep, and our kitchen sweep. And then we can start building and supporting our adrenals. Okay, great. Well done. We're 2 minutes past the hour. All right. So let me pop in, and Jonna had, okay, I'm gonna do the questions from the Facebook page real quick. I already talked about Jenny had some, Jenny, I think it was Jenny, you asked about the aloe tonic 3 times a day. And again, I'm really sorry. I thought I was being so smart by updating the manual, and obviously I jacked it up. So I addressed the aloe tonic just twice a day. That's it. Jonna posted something on the Facebook group under the question post about flour and how her body is responding to flour and having like a piece of naan. I don't know if Jonna, you want to unmute yourself and share that with the others if you're out there.
Oh yeah, here okay. I am. Sorry, I didn't put my
That's okay. Video on. I mean, I'm putting you on the spot. So
yeah, no, I had noticed, for quite a while that I don't eat a lot of bread, but I have a good piece of bread. I won't eat a hamburger bun, but a really good piece of homemade bread or pizza. And the next day, it's just, it doesn't hurt. It's just, I can get constipated or just weird. It's not, what's that scale, that poop scale?
The Bristol stool chart. Yeah, the poop chart.
And it's just, and I've realized that it's the bread, it's the flour.
Yeah.
So no flour, I'm fine.
Yeah, that's
so I have some kind of intolerance. I don't know what it is, but
yeah, so there could very well be a sensitivity for sure. And I'd be curious, I mean, does that happen even like with a really high quality piece of sourdough?
Yeah,
yeah,
it does.
Okay,
because there's probably some white flour in there, somewhere.
Yeah,
you have to use some kind of white flour, even though you're putting some other good grains in it. So yeah.
Okay, interesting. I have been reading a lot about einkorn flour. Yeah, and interestingly, when I first started reading about it a couple of years ago, about, okay, well, this is, you can find bread made with einkorn from these really small, very artisanal bakeries, right? And we don't, I mean, maybe we have that now in Tulsa with Cat Cox, but I'm not really sure. A couple of years ago, nobody was using einkorn. I reached out to Farrell's and they were like, nah, we're not using that. But interestingly, I saw it in natural grocers. And one of those ancient flowers but anyway, so I just bring that up that I thought that was worth sharing with the rest of the group, because I know not everybody's jumping onto Facebook on a regular basis, but I thought, and you've changed, you've shifted your diet. You shifted your diet a long time ago. And
just the first, I did 5 to Thrive about 1.5 years ago.
Yeah.
And that's what made me really look at what I was eating and what it was doing to me.
Yeah. So interesting to watch and feel and witness how our bodies respond, especially when you've removed something for such a
Mhm.
long time. And I do want to say I see the time and I'm respectful of your time. If you need to pop off, please, no offense at all. But I am going to roll through and answer these questions so that you've got them in the recording. So yeah, back to Jana's experience. I find it so interesting. I mean, we can use diet therapeutically. Absolutely. We can use keto therapeutically. We can use paleo or autoimmune paleo therapeutically. We can use a low FODMAP diet or low histamine diet. We can use these diets therapeutically. Um, and I always like to believe that when we're using anything therapeutically, whether it's diet or whether it's herbal intervention, that we get on, get better, get off, right? And so with a diet, what we're doing with Five to Thrive could be it's a loose interpretation of the elimination diet. And the elimination diet is very much a therapeutic diet where you eliminate ingredients for 6 to 8 weeks, and then you slowly reintroduce one at a time to see how your body responds to that ingredient in order to find food sensitivities, food intolerances, allergies, things like that. It's a lot, it lasts, I mean, it takes a while, but it's a lot cheaper than getting a whole slew of functional medicine testing, which can run you, $6,000 to $10,000. And if you've got those resources, great, and you can get those answers immediately. But most of us are like, I think I'll do the diet first if you can handle eliminating. So in Five to Thrive, we are eliminating the big six for sure. But we're not necessarily taking out eggs. We're not necessarily taking out all meat, things like that. But like in Jana's situation, having shifted her diet a year and a half ago and taking the last 18 months to keep fine tuning it and fine tuning it and fine tuning it, it's just so interesting how, wow, when we have been without processed food, a specific processed food for a length of time, when we introduce it, our bodies will let us know if we're listening and if we're paying attention. It's really fascinating. I mean, our body is quick to respond. But I speak for myself. For many years of my life, decades, I was disconnected. I mean, I had no idea what was going on in my stomach. No idea at all. Okay, then thank you, Jana. I appreciate you letting me put you on the spot, and thanks for sharing that. So there was a question about meats. Now, this is a plant forward, as I've mentioned in the emails and in the Facebook posts leading up to the program and in the program. This is very much a plant forward, plant heavy program. There is plenty of research and evidence out there indicating that a whole foods, plant-based lifestyle and diet can impact not only balancing our hormones, but reducing and for many women, even eliminating the disruptions of perimenopause, these symptoms of menopause. So I'm an advocate during the program of going meat free if that's appropriate for you, because I think it's worth exploring just to see how your body responds again when you bring meat back in. Now, having said that, I know not everybody's willing to do that. I respect that I live in the middle of the country, and most of my clientele in Oklahoma are like, you want me to what? No, okay, no, it's not a vegan program, not at all. I'm not vegan, so I would, but again, we can use a vegan diet therapeutically if we'd like. But suffice it to say, when we're talking about the big six, the meats that I am suggesting and actually not suggesting, but strongly recommending that you reduce or eliminate ideally are the processed meats. And those are, bacon, cured meats, smoked meats, lunch meats, deli meats, things like that. Definitely ditch those for the length of the program. They're doing our bodies just a world of harm. But with regards to other meats, if you can bring to your table, grass-fed beef that you get from a local rancher, great. We're looking for meats, seafoods that haven't been altered, that haven't been pumped full of antibiotics, that haven't been pumped full of hormones. Chicken. What's happening in factory chicken farms now is, I mean, again, I don't have the emotional capacity to go into it, but it's gut wrenching, the way that the chickens are being fed and treated right now. But anyway, so when it comes to meats, find the meat that is what my husband would call free of junk free, no junk, just have the no junk rule. So seafoods, I would, for the length of the program, if you want seafood, I would limit it to twice a week. And I would suggest maybe having like tuna, salmon, like a really high quality piece of fish that hasn't been raised in a pond and been fed dog food, which I know it sounds crazy, but it's a thing. It's a thing. Like salmon are being fed food that make them turn orange, and it's like, it's not even real salmon. So just mind where you're getting it, and then I would just suggest eating it, spacing it out, not eating it every single day if you can, and really giving the opportunity to go more plant heavy and getting your protein from legumes, from beans, from the combination of beans and rice, from soy products. Again, unadulterated soy products pack a bunch of protein. Get your protein from the nuts and the nut butters, that sort of thing. And even some grains pack a high, like quinoa packs a high amount of protein. So that's the meat question. Let's see. How are dioxins? Okay, great question. And how safe is BPA free? I don't know about BPA free plastic containers, Kim. I need to look that up. And let me also I don't want to take the time to like find it, but I will look at how dioxins are listed on ingredient labels, how they're listed on the labels, and I'll put that into the Facebook page. Yeah, the wind, Jen, that's funny, the wind blowing the fire. Okay, avocado oil, coconut oil to cook with. Yes, avocado oil good, coconut oil good, olive oil good, and ghee good. All good to cook with. We want to stay away from what are considered the industrial seed oils, sunflower oil, safflower oil, definitely vegetable oils out the window for this. Coconut sugar, I have no idea what lucuma is, but if it's natural, we'll give it a pass. And coconut sugar, yeah, I mean, yeah, coconut sugar. I think still sugar in its most pure form, like honey or maple syrup, that would be the gold standard. The other sugars, there's still a little bit of processing that goes into it, but I mean, coconut sugar, stevia, great, bring it into the picture. It's all better. I mean, if we're looking at things on the spectrum, right? So the high end of the spectrum is honey and maple syrup, straight from the bee, straight from the tree kind of thing. And then we go down, the bottom end of the spectrum is, the processed white sugar or the high fructose corn syrup. So, stevia and jaggery and coconut sugar, those are going to be like right here next to honey and maple syrup. So yeah, go for it. Any suggestions about a different brand of aloe juice? The one, okay, yeah. So that, Maureen, that aloe juice comes from Star West Botanicals, the one that you got in the box. You can order it, and I want to say you could get it in a half gallon, but I'm not sure. But then there's shipping. A couple of brands. Well, the brand that I like the best that I can find out here is called Lily of the Desert. And it comes in a brown glass bottle, or you can buy it in a half gallon or a gallon. It's in a brown, I think it's plastic, but it's in a brown jug. And I think that's an excellent brand. Look for the inner fillet, and the flavor profile is super mild. I mean, you can add it to pretty much anything, any juice, or, as we start warming up and it becomes smoothie time of year, you can put it into your juices or your green juices in the blender, and you don't even know it's in there. So
that's to look for the inner what?
The inner fillet. So you're getting the so when you look at aloe vera juices, especially in the health food stores, you'll see different, like this comes from this part of the plant, this part of the plant, this part of the leaf, etc. And right on the inside, right on the inside of the leaf is, and I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head, but there's a there's a there's a component just on the inside of the leaf that is very much a laxative, and we're not looking for that. The inner fillet is the meaty part of the leaf. I mean, so you could technically, as we move into summer, you could go to a natural grocery store or an Asian market and just, or maybe you're growing aloe, just lob off a big aloe leaf and, use that gooey inner, that's called the inner fillet. That's what we're looking for. And that lily of the desert has the inner fillet, but it's liquefied. Yeah, and that's a good one. Okay, so that's all the questions. I've got my homework. I'm going to give you all the list of how we figure out where dioxins are in our equipment and our supplies. And I'm super excited for next week when we do the bathroom sweep. But right now, let's focus on the kitchen. Kim, it's great to see you. Thanks for logging on. Sarah, good to have you. Great. Okay, everybody. So that's it. There's a lot. Hi, Sarah. There's a lot going on. Thank you, those of you who are able to stick around and hang in there tonight. I appreciate your attention. I appreciate you carving the time out and showing up for this, especially those of you who are on the East Coast. Thanks for bearing with me. I keep thinking I'm going to do this in an hour, and then I just, even with notes, and there's so much to talk about. So if you haven't been jumping into the Facebook page, I highly encourage you to get on there. We really want your voice, especially those like Sarah. Haven't seen you. Where have you been, Sarah? And Sarah's been through the program before, and is also quite the chef. And so I'm looking forward to some of your recipes that you'll share with us. Not again to put you on the spot, but I just put you on the spot to share some recipes with us. And anyway, I really encourage you to jump into Facebook and be part of the dialogue and be part of the conversation in there, because that's our it's just an ongoing chat that we can support one another. Like I said, share recipes, correct me on the mistakes I've made in the manual. I'm so sorry. And make sure that we all stay on the same page. Other than that, I'll do my homework tonight and I'll drop it into the Facebook group tomorrow, and you all have a wonderful evening. And when it comes to the kitchen sweep, one cabinet, one cupboard at a time, just grab a trash bag, make a plan. What evening or what afternoon am I going to tackle this? And then just get into one cupboard. And maybe you maybe it's your spice cabinet, ditch the old ones and start fresh. Or maybe it's a cupboard that needs a little makeover, and put all your grains, your nuts, your legumes, get them into a mason jar or some kind of a jar, and label them with blue tape. And
do we still take our triathlon rose?
Oh yeah.
Triphala?
You're always going to take
Okay.
Yeah, definitely take the triphala every night.
Okay.
Yeah, take your triphala every
Okay. Night. It's just not on there on the week 2 thing, so wasn't sure.
Yeah. Take the triphala. That's just going to be like a standard.
Okay.
Yay. Okay, ladies. Thank you.
Thank
Sleep
you.
well.
Bye bye. Thanks, Lisa.
Bye.